So the year is 2024, the month is March, and there's something very strange going on. I am no longer selling any guitars. Not on Reverb, not on any of my local marketplaces, nothing. So why am I doing this? What is my rationale? Is this something you should consider as well? That's what we're going to get into today's episode. So hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. My name is Utkarsh Mohan, coming to you from Singapore. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please do consider liking, subscribing, and especially sharing, because that really helps fuel the algorithm and help encourage me. Now onto the topic on hand. I want to be clear on one thing. This is not advice. This is merely a point of view. This is merely one of the thousands of voices, the thousands of bits of information that hit you every day. But it is something that I am doing after some consideration. I know that a few of you have seen a video from me very recently on why I no longer sell on Reverb. This has got nothing to do with Reverb. It is much bigger than that. So I have kind of distilled it into 5 different reasons, and I'm going to get into each of those reasons. Reason number 1, the market is soft currently. I think this is blatantly stating the obvious. The guitar market, after being a bull market since the pandemic, is rather soft. This is a time when you're seeing people giving deals, giving offers, so it is very definitely a buyer's market. It is not the ideal circumstance to sell a guitar. This is not to say that the market is bearish. I don't think it is. This is not to say that the market has completely collapsed. It is far from it. But it is undoubtedly more difficult. So this is stating the obvious. All of us have observed it. Multiple people on YouTube have also observed it. So that is the starting point of my rationale, but it really doesn't end there. Reason number 2, sticky inflation. And this will also link to reason number 3, which is an overall sense of economic risk, bubbles, and geopolitical risk. So we're going to talk reason 2 and reason 3 together. Now, again, remember I'm talking about myself. So I have a certain amount of capital, money locked up in guitars, used guitars. I have a choice here. Do I sell them and reallocate that money elsewhere? Remember, I'm talking from my situation where I'm not looking to sell them for cash. I'm okay for cash. Thank God for that. But just sharing with you my situation. So my choice is, do I sell my used guitars and reallocate that capital somewhere else? Say the stock market, say Bitcoin, I'm making it up, say gold, and there's so many different things that you can do with the money. Now, the way I look at it, and I've talked about this on my channel, is that used guitars, not a new guitar that you buy and you lose 30% off, but a used guitar, because everything in my collection now is a used guitar. Now that I've bought it, it is a used guitar. Used guitars are inflation hedges. This means as inflation goes up, new guitar prices also go up. This has been demonstrated with data. This is not my opinion. This has been happening since 1959, frankly, or even earlier, whenever Fender and Gibson became big. And as new guitar prices go up, used guitar prices go up in a similar percentage. It's, say, a certain percentage of new guitar prices. So we are living in a time where inflation is refusing to go away. The last 20 years, we were very lucky because we didn't have much inflation in the 2000s and the 2010s. But 2020s, I've talked about this in another video. We are living in an era of inflation. And not everything goes up with inflation. The cash that you have in your bank, it becomes worth less and less with inflation. If today $10 could buy you, 2 McDonald's meals, but tomorrow $12 buys you 2 McDonald's meals. So obviously the $10 is not worth as much as it used to be. Used guitars are inflation hedged. They will tend to go up in line with inflation. My choice could be, do I allocate this somewhere else? Do I put it in a stock? Now, I'm not going to turn this into a financial podcast, but there are 2 things to note about where we are sitting right now in May 2024. The stock market, particularly the US stock market, is at a valuation relative to earnings. This is kind of how you look. Stocks are priced based on how much the company is expected to earn, how much cash they're supposed to give you. It is priced not at the historically highest level, but at very, very high levels. So for me, as much as there is a lot of reasons to be optimistic, AI and all of that, that those valuations make me nervous. And one has to remember that stock investing is inherently fraught. So even take something like an Amazon. Amazon is probably a darling for many people. When we had the 2000s dot-com bubble burst, Amazon lost 90% of its value, one particular stock. Of course, it has bounced back and way, way more now. But that's kind of the volatility. So I do not want to reallocate money from a portfolio, which is the used guitars, which I know is an inflation hedge, to something that could go down. I do not know enough about all the emerging markets and how to invest in all of them. And remember, I talked about geopolitical risk. This is a year where you have elections in the US. This is a year that you have elections in India, the largest democracy in the world. So there are 1,000 different things going on this year. War, everything. Together with inflation, together with high interest rates. You could say that, hey, why don't I put my money in a bank and earn some interest on it? Reality is that most places, you're not going to get interest that is keeping up with inflation. So even though theoretically, say inflation is 5%, you think you're getting 3% in the bank, but reality is that 3% is not even keeping it up with inflation. So those are the reasons why my used guitar portfolio, which is an inflation hedge, I choose to keep it here until circumstances, economic circumstances, maybe the bubble breaks, geopolitical circumstances, maybe there's some political stability, etc., until that changes. So these are reason 2 and 3, not what you would expect from a guitar YouTube channel, but hopefully you get some sort of a sense into my thinking. Reason number 4, selling guitars, especially internationally, has become a pain in the ass, frankly. I've talked about Reverb's woes recently, all the fees that they want to charge. In general, shipping rates, especially internationally, have gone up through the roof. And frankly, I could not be bothered with all the paperwork and all the different pieces of the puzzle trying to take a piece from my particular sale. So there was a time when I was fairly active on Reverb buying and selling. But now, with all the taxes, all the efforts by Reverb to increase their profitability, I've talked about this in the other video, everything combined, it's just not worth it to me. It's kind of crossed that boundary for me where I feel it's worth it for me to invest my time and energies into putting a guitar on Reverb, marketing it, putting out all the material, then packing it. Not worth it anymore for me. This is not to say I never say never. Maybe if circumstances change, maybe if there's a bull market again like you had in 2020, 2021, it may be worth it to me. But at the current moment in time, it just is not. Reason number 5, I'm not selling any guitars because I'm not buying any guitars. Now, I recently made a video on a guitar that I called the Gas Killer. And I haven't bought any new guitar since I got that guitar, which has been 5 months now. And if you think about yourself, often the reason you're selling your guitars is because you want to buy something else. You either need to make space, you either need to make money, whatever. You need to convince the better half, whatever it might be. But in the absence of me acquiring guitars, the need for me to sell guitars has become it has disappeared. I have just about enough space for all my guitars. You could argue I need a little bit, I could do with more space, but it's not something that's affecting my day-to-day as such. Cash-wise, I already told you, lucky enough that it's not a problem. So since I'm not acquiring anything, I'm not needing to sell anything. So there you have it. Those are the 5 reasons. The biggest reason being the market is soft, but then reason 2 and reason 3, which is the overall state of the world and the economy and potential for bubbles and inflation. That's a big factor in my decision. Reverb and otherwise selling internationally becoming more difficult. And finally, my need to sell has become less because I'm not buying anything. Now, I do want to add on a couple of points here as well. The first point that I want to add is it is rather important to be in a position where you don't need to sell your guitars. Because the thing is, if you are in a position that you need to sell your guitars, then you're forced to make bad choices. So if I had to sell my guitars right now, I would have to endure the 10% or whatever amount of money that gets cut if I sell through Reverb. I would have to market it. I'd have to go through a lot of stuff just to get cash. It's really not worth it. So it's important to exercise a level of judgment before buying something, because you have to remember how difficult it is to sell it later. That said, right now is a good time to buy a guitar. So if you really need a guitar, or if you feel you're able, if you're not stretching yourself, right now, May 2024 may not be a bad time to get some really, really good deals. All right, so this is my point of view. I would love to hear what you folks think as well. Let me know as always in the comments section. I'll see you next time.